Hey everyone, Dan here. We are just a bit before market close on Wednesday, July 7th. Today we're going to take an updated look at Wish. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button, it helps a lot. And also, if you would like to receive a once or twice a week newsletter from me starting in August, there's a Google form in the description below, which you can put your email in, and I will then add you to the list. And before I launch it in August, I'll send you a little reminder that, hey, you signed up for this thing. Here's when it's starting. Here's what it's going to be. If you're no longer interested and you want to opt out, here's how you can do it. So feel free to grab a look at that too if you get a chance and are interested. Okay, so Wish having a pretty rough day today, down over 7% at the moment. Volume remaining very, very high, about over 20 million higher than the average volume the last 3 months. That said, we're clearly in this pushback retracement period after this huge run up that we had originally started mapping out with these blue price targets, looking for support and resistance zones. I would say on the way up, this respected a lot of these resistance zones. We saw this sort of flagging out pattern that then had it consolidate through and bounce up and try to get support over that 1451, but it couldn't hold it, and then try to catch itself at that 1330, 1285, 1197, and fell right through the 1150, and is now trying to pick up support here at this 1094, which we had plotted way back when. The next leg down, if it needs it, in my opinion, is 1032. Since we are getting so close to that price, let's go ahead and slap in one below it. Let's see what the prior price action tells us here. So we have that 1032. The next level down that I would look for would be right about here, 9.95. So just under $10 would be the next area that I would look for support. And that's, if you're new to the video, is because you see previous support here. That was prior to that support, it was resistance here and support and resistance here. So areas of previous price action or price points that acted as both support and resistance repetitively are then, I presume them to be, this is a theory that I prescribe to, I presume them to be future support and resistance zones as the price action, the buy, sell, the supply, demand, power at those price zones still is in effect. So that's what I would look for to the downside if it needs it. But, for the time being, to not be too pessimistic, it is trying to build support at that 1094 level. And so obviously, we can give it an opportunity to try to do that now. And just keep in mind, as these fall below these zones, as they quickly recover them, that is them trying to hold that zone. It's not always picture perfect, like bouncing right off of it, like you see here, or bouncing right up against it, like you see here. There's a little bit of a buffer zone here. So that was about 20 cents dip. If we look at the ATR, for example, see what that is, that's 8 cents. So I at least give it the buffer of the ATR to dip below. When it dipped, it was only about 7 cents. So, it dipped a bit lower than we would have liked at that point, but just keep in mind, it's a zone. It's not an exact level, exact target. It depends if it does this sort of thing, falls through it, especially if it falls through rapidly. It clearly didn't fall through rapidly here, right? I've been trying to hold this basically all day as its floor for the day, and then it fell through, and now it's trying to quickly come back. So that tells me that it has a good chance of maintaining support here for the time being, at least. When it falls through rapidly like this and doesn't really show any signs of trying to quickly at least turn it back into resistance, quickly start hugging it, if you will, that's when you should be looking to the next leg down, the next price target down, in order to have a catch zone there. Or see what it's going to do. So let's zoom back out and let's charts here and sort of see what we can find on this pretty challenging downturn that it's had. It was, if you can see it here, it was in a channel right here, and then it tried to bump out of the top and consolidate, but then through that consolidation, it's lost its price strength and then fell through. And we'll go through some sort of news catalysts as well in a minute and talk a bit about those and what I think we might be able to expect looking ahead, because I think there's much more to it than might meet the eye. So we'll get there in a sec after we sort of work ourselves through these this charting. So basically, here's what we would have seen with the initial like channel area where it bumped out of. Now, what I would really want to look at this point is the trend line as it pertains to this. See how there's a secondary downtrend here since it broke out of that steeper one, or that like more channel downtrend. Now it's caught under this downtrend, and then it also has a downtrend support line of, let's see, that comes into play about here. And so those things aren't running perfectly in parallel with each other. So at some point, this gap will close. I mean, obviously, if you're a wish bull or a context logic bull, you're not wanting it to continue down this corridor and having to eventually squeeze itself out, in which case it would probably squeeze out and move sideways and then sort of like pick its next direction, which still could be down. But at this point, what I'd be looking for is for it to build off of this 1094 price zone, which you see it trying to do right now. This is on the 1 hour time frame. If it can get support at 1150 as soon as tomorrow, it could break out of this near-term downtrend resistance, and that could be sort of like the initial steps toward a broader recovery or a broader pump coming into play. But I think that's going to be the main things to look at. Getting over this 1150 resistance level and building it as support so that you can pop yourself out of that downtrend, and then just keep an eye on the downside if you need it. 1032 supports, so it has a pretty steep drop from this point down, probably not a ton of zones to get caught on. No, probably not. Down toward that 1032, and then if for some reason it can't hold that, 995 would be the next leg down, in my opinion. So those are the things that I would keep an eye out for. Obviously, to the upside, I think all of those price targets are still in play if it can flip them from resistance to support and grow its price strength off of them. RSI, as you'd imagine, very low. It's been spending several days in oversold territory, so definitely has a ton of potential for buying pressure to come in if the buyers are there. And then also similarly with the MACD, very well under the baseline. We are seeing it stretching down, meeting recent lows in terms of like the bearish momentum. And so it still is quite strong on the bearish momentum side of things. So it's going to take quite a bit in order to swing this back above the baseline and truly make a bullish run. But the first things first, you want to see this MACD cross over the signal line and start to head up. So getting a nice green candle right now, so we'll see if that turns into anything. Let's quickly look at the data and some of the sort of items, catalysts that are driving what's going on. So we see here, this came out, a bunch of these came out actually. Basically, all of these law firms are alleging that the offering documents were negligently prepared for when Wish came to market. It contained untrue statements, a material fact, or omitted to state other facts necessary to make the statements made not misleading, and were not prepared in accordance with the rules and regulations governing their preparation. Additionally, defendants made materially false and misleading statements regarding the company's business, operational, and compliance policies. Specifically, the offering documents and defendants made false and or misleading statements and or failed to disclose that Context Logic's Q4 2020 monthly active users had declined materially and were not then growing. Accordingly, Context Logic had made materially overstated the company's business metrics and financial prospects, and as a result, the company's public statements were materially false and misleading at all relevant times. So basically, it goes through this March 8th, announcement of results and amendments then made to it, announced the financial results. And so basically what they're saying is, as they were announcing financial situations and prospects, as well as their monthly active users, which is a big way in which folks price, especially like growth stage companies, that they were overstating them and sort of misleading investors to think that the business was growing or had more potential or was more profitable than was true. So there's a bunch of these that have come out today. Like I said, here's the like news ticker. You see today at 2:45 p.m., 12:53, 12:24. So there's a bunch here. You see them all throughout the day today. Even this morning, first thing. So one thing that I wanted to mention that I think it's worth keeping in mind, and I don't know if it's going to happen here, and we'll sort of like look at the data in a couple of minutes. Sometimes, it's not a 100% thing, as basically nothing is, but sometimes when a slew of these law firms publish these headlines on a given day or over the course of a week or 2 weeks, it can often be a precursor to a short seller report that is going to drop. And then, of course, short sellers are going to pile in, or they will have piled in just in advance of the short seller report coming out, and then come in really heavy to try to drive the stock price down even more significantly. And so I would just keep an eye out for that. I don't know if that's a factor here, if that's likely to happen, but I would just be hyper vigilant of that in the coming days and weeks ahead. To that end, I would say that the short volume ratio that we see right now is compared to like these days is relatively low. So as far as we can see from this at the moment, short sellers aren't piling in, which would signal an imminent short seller report coming out. But I would keep a strong eye on that, as well as iBorrow desk, where you see the close of day yesterday, 7.9 million, and then basically just some shorts closing out today, at least via Interactive Brokers, which is where this feed comes from. But I would keep an eye on this feed as well to try to determine if there is a huge swing in these stats in the coming days. If there's all of a sudden a huge rush of the short volume, if there's a huge decrease in the available shares, I would then be super on the lookout for a short seller report to be dropping within a day or days. On the flip side of things, there is this analyst cumulative average price target of 1790, giving you over 50% potential return, or return potential, I guess I should say, on Wish. That's with 8 buy and 3 hold analyst ratings. So on that side of things, it's looking pretty solid. Although, I would say just be careful. There was a downgrade here. So some of these previous buys, going ahead and switching to holds, or removing their rating altogether. But to the extent to which I did want this to be total doom and gloom, but also I don't want to pretend that there's a bunch of tailwinds with Wish, because I don't necessarily think that's the case. But there is the analyst rating still sort of as a potential catalyst for it. Also, the retail side of things, the sentiment around Wish, Wish taking up about 8% of the total volume. I don't know. The one thing that I would want to look out for is how often is this crawler, this algorithm, picking up Wish as the symbol versus somebody just saying oh, I wish that I knew now what I didn't know then, or whatever the saying is. But something I wish AMD would go up. I'm wondering if it's picking up that and saying oh, that's a comment on Wish, the ticker symbol. But anyway, I think it's kind of established that there are a lot of folks on Reddits and Wall Street Bets that are looking for context logic to boost. So as long as that stays high, that's another potential, mark in context logic's favor. But again, I would watch out for what these filings, these lawsuits could be. Sort of, what do you call it? Sort of signaling, that's not the word I was looking for, but what they're signaling if there is a short seller report coming out in the near future. And of course, then just the charting aspect of things, trying to build off this 1094 support would be the most important first step to any sort of like trend reversal at the moment. All right, that will do it for this one. I appreciate you watching the update video. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to share it on Reddit or Twitter or Facebook, wherever you share videos. Like, subscribe, comments, all of those good things. I really, really appreciate it. It's still a very young channel and I'm trying to grow it as best I can. So those things mean a lot to me. All right, well, best of luck this week, no matter what you're trading. I hope it's a good one, and I will see you in the next video.